Good morning, or good evening, I should say, depending on what part of the world you're in. I'll just put you on mute. Good morning, or good evening, I should say, depending on what part of the world you're in. I'll just put you on mute. Good morning, or good evening, I should say, depending on what part of the world you're in. I'll just put you on mute. Good morning, or good evening, I should say, depending on what part of the world you're in. All right. Turn that echoing off would be a good start. Okay, so for everyone that doesn't know me, I'm Lisa Jowett, and I'd like to welcome you to my webinar, Unlock the Secrets to Shredding Belly Fat After the Age of 40. Now, I feel like I'm a personal trainer and I'm 47 years of age myself, and I hear a lot of complaints, mainly from women, that after the age of 40, they want to know how to lose weight from their belly. Hi, Mark. Hi, Rosemary. Welcome. And this, it definitely gets more challenging as we get older, but it's not impossible. And it's probably no secret to you that our hormones play a huge role in our health and energy and our body composition. But basically, once women, so it doesn't apply to you, Mark, once you hit perimenopause, so that can be the age of as young as 35, basically the hormones can go on a roller coaster ride. And this is what can cause weight gain and health issues. Now, in this webinar, I'm basically going to cover how our hormones change and why you may feel stuck in losing weight, low in energy, and how our hormones can work and how you can actually manipulate them through healthy nutrition, exercise, and other lifestyle changes. So firstly, I would like to touch on perimenopause. So the normal age for the final period for a woman is from 45 to 55. So perimenopause actually happens 10 years, can start happening 10 years before 35. So perimenopause actually can't be diagnosed by FSH, so follicle stimulating hormone, which is a hormone associated with reproduction and the development of eggs in women and sperm in men, or any other lab tests. Instead, it's diagnosed on age and symptoms. So according to Canadian endocrinologist, Professor Geraldine C. Pryor, she actually says a midlife woman with regular cycles is likely to be in perimenopause if she notices any of the three changes. So one of these could be new onset, heavy or longer flow, 2 shortened menstrual cycles, so 25 days or less, new sore, swollen or lumpy breasts, new mid-sleep waking, increased menstrual cramps, onset of night sweats, in particular premenstrual, new or markedly increased migraine headaches, new or increased menstrual mood swings, weight gain without changes in exercise or eating. So basically, in other words, females, if you're over 35 and have at least 3 symptoms on this list, you're likely to actually be in perimenopause. In the early phases of perimenopause, the biggest change is actually the lowering of the progesterone. So due to the shorter luteal phases, which actually occurs after ovulation, when your ovaries release an egg and before your period starts, and more anovulatory cycles or not ovulating, despite regular periods, cause lower progesterone, contributes to anxiety, breast pain, heart palpitations, night sweats, frequent migraines, and crazy heavy periods. So at the same time, the progesterone drops away, the estrogen spikes up to 3 times normal, which contributes to irritable mood, breast pain, and heavy periods. So basically, ladies are on a roller coaster. So any men that are watching this is what happens to women. So, so it's a good education for males as well. So let's get into the topic which I really wanted to talk about today, which is actually our abdominal weight gain, but it's all related to hormones. So, this is a very, very common area which is likely to put on weight at that age from like 35 to 40. And quite often it's due to insulin resistance or other autoimmune diseases. So insulin resistance is the condition of having chronically elevated levels of insulin. It's also called a metabolic syndrome, or pre-diabetes is a major player in many women's health conditions, including polycystic ovary syndrome, acne, fibroids, perimenopause, and heavy periods. So insulin resistance can cause abdominal weight gain, okay, and is a risk factor for diabetes, cancer, osteoporosis, dementia, and heart disease. So you might be like thinking, oh, I wonder if I've got insulin resistance. Now it's time to find out. Now there's definitely different lifestyle changes that you can make, but this is actually a test that you can do if you've been trying a whole healthy lifestyle and after 3 months you're not getting any results. So testing for insulin resistance, the best way to do it is actually to test for insulin resistance is not a test for glucose. Instead, it's a test for the hormone insulin, either as fasting insulin or an oral glucose tolerance test with insulin, otherwise known as a Kraft test. Or a glucose tolerance test is when you give a fasting blood sample and then drink a glucose drink before giving 2 more samples at 1 and 2 hour intervals. If you're going to have this test, it's much more useful to have it with insulin so you can actually see your insulin readings. Now, we want to measure our waist, okay? So insulin resistance, like I mentioned before, causes the bigger tummy, okay? So this is where we end up with that abdominal weight gain. So it can cause that apple-shaped obesity. So the larger your waist circumference, the more likely you have insulin resistance. So as a woman, your risk starts when your waist circumference is greater than 32 inches or 80 centimeters. So it's actually not that big. And the best way to measure it is basically the smallest part of your waist or just above the belly button. Now, I generally do measurements around the belly button only for the fact that the belly button doesn't move, but that area is slightly bigger than your smallest part of your waist, generally speaking. Now, tip, you don't have to be overweight to have insulin resistance. You can have a normal BMI and not actually be overweight at all and still have elevated insulin. So there's a lot of like slim people out there that still have that apple sort of shape. But the great thing is we can actually reverse insulin resistance by making some lifestyle changes. So high fructose can induce fatty liver and insulin resistance. So the simplest way to reverse insulin resistance, first of all, is to stop having fruit juice or other sweet drinks and snacks, okay? So we want to cut back on desserts. That means no sweetened yogurt, no granola bars, none of those lovely protein balls that are labeled healthy. You know, you've got all these dates and apricots and stuff like that. That's actually still raises your insulin, which is going to cause the weight gain. So no agave or other natural sugars, okay? What you're best off using is actually stevia, xylitol, rice malt syrup, or monk fruit. This is much better for you. And what we also can use to help with our insulin is supplement with magnesium. Magnesium deficiency is a significant contributor to insulin resistance. Fortunately, taking magnesium has been found to improve insulin resistance. So I definitely recommend taking magnesium. So magnesium has some really great benefits, including regulating the HPA, adrenal axis, and improving sleep, supporting progesterone, curbing sugar cravings, reducing inflammation, and it also combines really well with taurine, an amino acid that improves insulin sensitivity. So we also want to be making sure that we maintain a healthy circadian rhythm. So that's just your sleep, okay? So Your circadian rhythm or your body clock has a profound effect on your glucose metabolism. So there's always so many different factors that come into these different health problems. And the whole body insulin sensitivity and regulation of the circadian rhythm is a contributing cause of insulin resistance. So the best way to support that rhythm is to maintain regular patterns of eating and light exposure. So for example, tell your body it's morning with protein and bright light. Then in the evening, send your brain the opposite signal with rest and dim pink light. You can actually also purchase melatonin. So this can actually help you as well if you're having really big troubles with sleeping. But you always want to try things naturally. This is actually, I mean, melatonin is natural, but I always recommend trying all the different lifestyle, changing your lifestyle choices first. So another thing that we can do to help is move your body. Exercise improves insulin sensitivity in the muscles by increasing the number of mitochondria, which are the powerhouse cells. So it basically turns the food into energy. That's what mitochondria does. And building a healthy muscle also requires sufficient dietary protein. Resistance training, HIIT, and yoga, all really beneficial, of course. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about those in it shortly. Now, another thing that you will find as you get older is you start to feel more stressed. So this basically happens because of losing progesterone during perimenopause. So this can destabilize the HPA axis, or the medical term, it's adrenal fatigue, which is a stress response. Okay, so this is not unusual. This recalibration of the nervous system is why perimenopause is associated with an increased risk of anxiety, depression, and insomnia. And I hear of like a lot of doctors giving women medications to like antidepressants and what have you when they're at this age, rather than encouraging them to change their lifestyles, which is really disappointing. And it really can be helped a lot by living a healthy lifestyle. So basically, actually there's this really fascinating study called the estradiol and progesterone as resilient markers. So the researchers found that a lower level of progesterone in perimenopause is associated with lower life satisfaction, higher perceived stress, and an increased risk of depression and anxiety. The same was not true for the lower estrogen. So it's actually the progesterone which is messing with us. So how to support your nervous system during perimenopause? Basically, more rest and self-care. Now, you're at a vulnerable time, but it won't last forever. Okay, so you have permission to slow down and look after yourself until you've reached menopause. And one easy way to promote relaxation is to activate the vagus nerve and parasympathetic nervous system. Now, I feel the same about this. I sort of like think, what the heck? How am I going to like slow down? I've got kids, I've got businesses to run, I've got a crazy life. How am I going to be able to do this? But as I am getting older, as I'm getting closer to 50, I'm realizing that I do actually need to make sure that I do have some downtime and implement some of these strategies. And there's actually some supplements which I find quite beneficial as well. Now, magnesium, as I mentioned magnesium before, it really is a stress reliever, and I recommend taking that in the evenings. And magnesium glycinate is the best type because the amino acid glycine has its own calming effect. So if that's one thing that you should take, that would like one supplement you should take is definitely magnesium. Taurine is an amino acid, and that also calms the brain by boosting the GABA and blocking glutamate and adrenaline. So taurine is depleted by estrogen. So women have a higher requirement for taurine than what men do. So some naturopaths actually prescribe taurine and magnesium together. So for perimenopausal women. So you also want to reduce histamine and mast cell activation by avoiding cows, dairy, and alcohol. So sometimes taking an antihistamine on a bad mood day can actually help you. So as you can see, our hormones are like all over the place. So this is why we're struggling to lose weight. So it's not just your imagination. And a lot of people, a lot of the younger people don't understand that. And also, I don't think hormones are really spoken about enough and how it really can impact our lives. But there's definitely some different lifestyle changes that we can make. So resistance in HIIT training, as you all know, I'm a personal trainer. So I am a firm believer in moving your body. Now, the reason it's so important for you to include resistance training is you actually drop 15%. Well, your metabolic rate drops 15% once you hit perimenopause, but your actual muscle mass drops by 1% per year after the age of 30. So that's pretty young, okay? Like people are living to like 90 and 100. So to think that your muscle mass is already depleting from the age of 30 is a huge concern, but it's not all over. You can definitely have people, you can definitely build muscle at any age. And there's been quite a lot of studies done even in nursing homes where people, where they've actually done this study, and it was really quite interesting. I think it was over 8 weeks or something. And they did this, I think it was on 8 different people in the nursing home, and they had them on a resistance training program. And they all managed to gain muscle in like, it was 6 to 8 weeks. I can't remember quite what it was. And some of them even got rid of their walking frames in that time. So it's super important. So weightlifting, also known as resistance training, has been practiced for centuries. So it's a way of building muscular strength. So with resistance training, we can use anything. We can be using anything that's going to create some sort of resistance to the body. So we can be working barbells or dumbbells, bands. You can use body weight, machines, anything. You can be lifting like products at home. Like it can be anything that you want. Now, and we really do need it because it increases our muscle size, and which counteracts our age-related muscle loss, which is what I was talking about. So we all need that after that age of 40, well, really after the age of 30, the science says. So whilst exercises such as running and cycling are effective for reducing body fat, these activities also decrease our muscle mass, okay? So we don't want to be doing that. So it leads to weaker muscles and greater perceived weight loss, because muscle is denser than fat, okay? But we don't want to be losing the muscle. So unlike endurance exercises, evidence shows resistance training not only has beneficial effects on reducing fat, it also increases muscle size and strength. Plus, we also experience that afterburn. So when we do our exercises, our muscles need more energy than they do when resting. So this energy comes from our muscles, ability to break down fat and carbohydrates, and that's all stored within the muscle, liver, and fatty tissue, okay? So with the help of oxygen, that is. So during exercise, we breathe faster and our heart works harder to pump more oxygen, fat, and carbohydrate to our exercising muscles. What is less obvious is that after we finish, the oxygen uptake actually remains elevated, okay? So in order to restore the muscles to their resting state by breaking down stored fat and carbohydrates. So this is actually called the excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, or basically known as the afterburn effect. So I'm sure many of you have heard of the afterburn effect, also known as EPOC. And it just describes how long oxygen uptake remains elevated after exercise in order to help the muscles recover. So you can see it's really, really important to be including this strength training. And ladies, it's not going to make you bulky. Okay, so I tell you what makes you bulky: eating too much shit food. So you just need to be eating good food and doing a good amount of strength training. I recommend doing at least 3 days of strength training a week, plus also some HIIT training. So HIIT training, or otherwise known as high intensity interval training, has a multitude of benefits. So including improved lean body mass, improved insulin sensitivity, like I touched on before, improved mitochondrial function. As I mentioned before, they're the little powerhouse cells which turn our food into energy. And basically anyone can do it, and at any age. Now, obviously there's different types of HIIT, and all it is it's just designed for you to push you to your limits. Okay, so you want to get out of your comfort zone. So no matter, depending on what sort of athlete you are or how long you've been training, so an advanced person might do the intervals like 2 to 1. So what I mean by that is you might do, like an example, a Tabata. So that would be 20 seconds of work and 10 seconds of rest, or 40 seconds of work, 20 seconds of rest. So and you would work really hard. So say we're doing 40-20, 40 seconds, you're working bloody hard, and then you're resting for 20 seconds. Okay. Then you're going into the next exercise, and then that would be 40 seconds, 20 seconds rest. So that's more advanced. And Tabata, which I just touched on, which is 20 seconds and 10 seconds. The Tabata actually only goes for 4 minutes, but that's a pretty intense 4 minutes. If you're doing it properly, where you're pushing hard for that 20 seconds and resting for that 10 seconds, it gets pretty spicy, especially if you do Tabata after Tabata, which is like what I have my clients doing. But you could, if you weren't so advanced, you could do, or like more of an intermediate, you could do 1 to 1. So it could be like 20 seconds work, 20 seconds rest. Or if you're a beginner, you can do it like, say, 20 seconds work and 40 seconds rest. So there's lots of different ways to incorporate HIIT training. And I incorporate about 3 days of HIIT training as well. So that generally the way I do it with my clients is I do that at the end of their strength training session. So as you can see, like there are lots of different forms, but we also want to make sure that we are moving daily. A lot of people, especially now with COVID, more people are working from home, and they're not moving around as much. So we're not walking to the station or the bus stop as much anymore, and everyone's a lot more sedentary. And it's really important that if you're not exercising, that you at least get 10,000 steps. Okay, so if you can't, I have a lot of people going, I don't have the time. So my recommendation is to do 30 minutes in the morning, and then you can you can add 1,000 steps every like hour or two. Like break up your day. Like it's not good to be just sitting at the computer all day anyway. So even if that's like every 2 hours or something, you get up, move around, add some more steps. So it's super important to include movement. We also, another one which is really great is yoga. There's lots of different forms of yoga. There's sort of like power types of yoga. Then you've got more relaxing type. You have like full meditation yogas. There's a lot of different forms of yoga that you can try. But it's just good to have a bit of a mix as well with your training. So this is like probably a really obvious one. We want to be eating whole foods. Okay, so now nutrition is one of my favorite topics, and I can literally talk about it all day. But I totally understand why people get confused with what to do. And it's all because of marketing. Okay, so basically at the end of the day, it's like there are slight variations, but it's calories in versus calories out. However, it does change once you're over 40 with your sugar consumption, as I mentioned before, with insulin resistance. So it's basically, we want to be having 80 to 90% of our diet needs to be whole foods. And while there's, you know, there's all different communities that have their own beliefs, different dietitians, like generally speaking, they will all say you want to have a predominantly whole food diet. Just some might be more protein, less carbs, apart from the carnivore diet, which I'm a little bit dubious about that one. There's like very little vegetables, but the majority of the research is all about like including more vegetables than protein, a little bit of carbs. However, there has been quite a lot of research done on over 40s, and they believe that intermittent fasting or a low carb and a low carb diet can help. Okay, so intermittent fasting, I'm sure most people are aware of intermittent fasting. It's been around for a very long time. This is basically how our ancestors ate. We didn't eat all the time. So it's just a new thing now that we're eating all the time. So there's many different types of intermittent fasting. So it's just time restricted feeding, if you don't know what it is. And there's different types of fasts. So you literally can do day fast, or you can do times of the day that you're fasting. But it's actually a way that I eat, and I find it works really well with my crazy schedule. I start work at like 5:30 a.m. and I do not want to eat. I've never been a person to want to eat first thing in the morning, more like 9 o'clock or something. Now I actually push it to a little bit later. The way that I eat is like 16:8. So I actually eat for only 8 hours of the day. So I generally eat from about midday or 11, depending on my day, between 11 and midday. And then I finish eating between like 7 and 8. So you can still have the same amount of calories in that time, but there's a lot of research saying how beneficial it can be. And you can actually eat, your people that actually eat in a shorter window generally weigh less, even eating the same amount of calories as people that are eating through a longer window. So, and there's different ways, like you might be like going, oh my God, like only 8 hours that you eat. So just say you have breakfast at like 8 o'clock. What you can do is you can just ease into it. So instead of like starting at 8 o'clock, you could like start at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock and just ease into your intermittent fasting. It's actually pretty simple, and you can actually have black coffee. So you can't have any milk. So that even includes like any of your plant-based milks, but you can have black coffee or black tea. So, and water while you're fasting. That doesn't interfere with the metabolism. So that's something which I find really helps me get through it. Now, like I mentioned before, there's been quite a lot of research done talking about the low carbohydrate diets. So low carb diets, there's a huge amount of benefits. This is not no carbs either. Okay, so low carb diets can reduce your appetite. So hunger tends to be the worst side effect of dieting. So studies consistently show that when people cut carbs and eat more protein and fat, they end up eating far fewer calories. So also lower carbs leads to more weight loss at first. So when you're first losing weight, and this is like it helps you with your mindset. If you can start to lose weight straight away when you go on a diet, even if it's water. So some of the times it's like, the beginning, it's actually a lot of fluid retention. So actually having this low carb diet will drop a lot of your fluid. Okay, so it's not necessarily fat, But in your mind, you're like, awesome, I've already lost like 2 kilos. How good. So, it does actually help with lowering your insulin levels. And it, like I mentioned, it causes like quite a lot of weight loss for the first 2 weeks. So also a greater proportion of fat loss comes from your abdominal cavity. So as this is all about losing weight from your stomach. So not all body fat's the same. So fat on your arms and on your bum and your thighs is like totally fine. The problem areas is around your stomach. Okay. So this is where you have the risk of disease when you're carrying weight around your stomach. So it's the harmful abdominal fat. So triglycerides tend to drop drastically. So triglycerides are the fat modules that circulate in your bloodstream. Okay. Another thing that is fantastic about low carb is increased levels of good cholesterol. That's your HDL. And the higher your levels of HDL relative to bad, the LDL, the lower your risk of heart disease. So again, this is like super important to get on top of. And we also need to like really think about like how we want to live when we're older as well. So, you know, if most people who are watching this are around about 40, you know, we don't end up having heart attacks at 60 or something for no reason. It's all an accumulation of what we've been doing in our younger years. So it's important to really get on top of it as soon as possible because, you know, a lot of people, they might get a second chance. They'll have a heart attack and they'll be like, oh, bloody hell, why didn't I lose weight and why didn't I exercise like back when I was like 40 or, you know, or 30 or something, and why had I been so careless? And then they will actually change their life around. I've actually trained clients that have done that. They have had health scares and I've managed to help them totally change their lifestyles, and they've been able to get off all their meds, which is amazing. Also, a low-carb diet can reduce blood sugar and insulin levels, and low-carb and ketogenic diets can be particularly helpful for people with diabetes, insulin resistance, which affects, you know, millions of people worldwide. So studies prove that cutting carbs does lower both blood sugar and insulin levels drastically. So also, there's science saying that it lowers blood pressure. So elevated blood pressure or hypertension is also a significant risk factor of many diseases, including heart disease, stroke, and kidney failure. Also, it's effective against metabolic syndrome. So this is also highly associated with the risk of diabetes and heart disease. So, and it also improves your bad cholesterol, like I touched on before. Now, I generally recommend eating low carb during the day, which is probably going to be the opposite to what you've normally heard, that you shouldn't have carbs at night. Well, that's not correct, okay? So you want to actually have some carbs in the evening. It actually helps satiate you. So basically, like you could have like for dinner, you could have some fish with some rice or some chicken and sweet potato. But we're not talking about having a huge amount of carbs. We're just talking like just a few pieces of sweet potato, a small amount of brown rice. But the protein, fat, and you want to have all. So you want to have like a bit of fat there as well in the evenings, because this actually causes satiety. So this is going to have you feeling fuller for much longer. So for example, protein supports muscles, signals circadian rhythm, like I mentioned before. And for example, fat delivers fat-soluble nutrients, and starch feeds healthy intestinal bacterial, which activates thyroid hormones and promotes relaxation. So you want to make sure that you're having some carbs in the evenings. This is going to help satiate you. You're actually much better off quitting sugar, Okay, so the high dose fructose, so like I mentioned before, the dates that I gave, the honey, this causes the insulin resistance. Okay, so please avoid those sorts of desserts. You can, however, have some like some of the less sweet desserts. So you could have like some berries, they're fantastic for you. Or even some dark chocolate. So 85% of cocoa chocolate contains only 1.3 grams of fructose. So it's actually better for you. Yes, chocolate is better for you than having one of those date protein balls. So, and like I mentioned before, like having stevia or monk fruit or rice malt syrup. So all these different ways of eating can be super beneficial to help you with your weight loss. All right, so sleep. Now, sleep, restorative sleep is really important. And I recommend, like general pops, athletes generally need actually more, but sleep 7 to 9 hours. And it's just as important as exercise, okay? So the resting, distressing, all of this is super important. But if there's a lot of negative effects associated with sleep deprivation. So I've just listed 10, which are caused from long-term sleep deprivation, but there's many more. So 1 is weight gain and obesity. 2 is diabetes. 3 is hypertension. 4 is depression and anxiety. 5 is memory loss and lack of focus. 6 is early onset dementia. 7 is heart attack and stroke. 8 is immune system deficiency. 9 is decreased fertility. And 10 is a low sex drive. So I'm sure that most of you have felt some of the effects of not having a good night's sleep. Just after, 1 or 2 nights deprivation, you lack focus and your motivation, you might feel grumpy. You'll actually want to snack on junk food. You actually, do you notice that you want junk food when you're lacking sleep? It's actually due to a hormone called ghrelin. So this actually makes you crave all the crappy food. So make sure you get your sleep. So anyway, imagine though what it's doing to your body if this is a regular occurrence, okay? But I also understand that there's times where it's hard to get your sleep. And it's, if you can, you want to try to play a bit of catch up and having like a bit of a 20-minute kip, a power nap. I'm a super big fan of. Getting up at 4:30 a.m. in the morning can get really tiring, and sometimes I don't have a great night's sleep. So sometimes I might have 30 minutes or 20 minutes. Sometimes it's 15 minutes. I literally will just close my eyes, and that's enough to just recharge me a bit. So obviously this is not going to work for you all the time. You do want to be focusing on trying to get those 7 hours sleep. There's just so many, like I said to you, there really are quite a lot of health issues which can happen if you're not getting that sleep. So, and I recommend sleep routines. This is something that I'm working on with my clients all the time, because a lot of my clients are either parents or they're business owners, or they're just they're very career driven, and they have a lot of stress. So it's not that easy to sleep. So I totally get it. So I recommend like going to sleep and waking up at the same time, as best as you can. So even on the weekends, as much as you're tempted to sleep in for like hours, you don't want to sleep in for too long, because you end up with that jet lag feeling. So create a comfy bedroom, which sort of goes without saying. So you want to make sure it's dark and cool and quiet. Be mindful of what you're drinking. So, we want to keep caffeine and alcohol to a minimum. Start like a little evening ritual. So it might be a bath. Look, this doesn't have to go on for hours or anything like that, or it might be just a warm shower, read a book, listen to some relaxing music or a podcast or a book. And just, just keep it simple, but try to get into that relaxing sort of feeling. So you might burn oils or something like that, or candles, whatever's your thing. This is probably a really obvious one. Avoid screen time like an hour before you sleep. It gets our brains all crazy. And also, like I mentioned before, just avoid caffeine after midday. Now, another one, which I did touch on a bit earlier, is stress reduction. So distressing is super important. It's like if you can be on the best diet and doing all the right exercise, but if you're really stressed out, your cortisol levels are going to rise, okay? So which means that you're not going to be able to lose weight. So it's super important that we include some sort of stress reduction as well. And like I mentioned with the sleep routine, it's not like this has to go for like, it doesn't have to go for hours or even half an hour or anything. And de-stressing is all about just relaxing, and it's about stress management. So it's basically just taking charge of your life, okay? So and your thoughts and your emotions and learning how to deal with your problems. So no matter how stressful your life seems, there are steps you can actually take to relieve the pressure and regain control. So I really like a bit of meditation or a walk, okay? So even just getting out and I actually do like a gratitude meditation walk. So I'll go out, I'll actually be grateful for things in my life, I'll be grateful for nature and what have you, and this really helps me. Other people just like to just go for a walk or read, journal, dance, anything that you want to do to help relax you is like is fantastic. If you're the creative type, you'll find that meditation helps you clear your mind. If you've got a business and you need to come up with some creative strategies, or you will find that meditation does help, because it does help with increased creativity. I found also energy. It generally helps me sleep better. I know when I was meditating all the time, I slept a lot better in the evenings. You just have a sense of calm, just more positive outlook on life, improved relationships, emotional balance. You just have greater self-awareness, increased focus, and also just your spiritual growth is so much nicer when you've been meditating. So I highly recommend giving it a go. So many people say to me, I can't do it. Like, I can't just lie there. There's too much going through my mind. But it's called meditation practice for a reason. So it's because we have to practice it. So we need to, it's not something that comes easily to us, and it's okay. Like when you're meditating, things will come into your mind and you just dismiss it and like push it away, and then you focus on your breath again. And there's lots of different apps that you can use as well. So you don't have to do a silent meditation, and like, you can just start with a 10-minute meditation. And it really is quite fantastic once you get into it. Now, the next thing I'd like to touch on is just having a positive mindset. So this, you might be like going, is this about like weight, losing weight? It is. Everything needs to be aligned, okay? It's not like when you're 20, okay? It's different. When you're over 40, there's different issues which I've discussed with you, which are going to play effect on your weight loss. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're believing in yourself, so and because anything's possible. So it is possible for you to lose that weight. And it's about like changing your mindset and thinking about, because a lot of the time people are like, it means that I can't drink, and it means that I can't do this on their journey. And it's like, well, all right, so how are you going to feel though if you have a heart attack? How are you going to feel if you've got diabetes? How are you going to feel if you can't play with your children anymore because you're so sick? So it's more about thinking about the things that you're going to gain rather than thinking about what you're going to lose. Like, you can still have a drink and you can still have a donut, but you just don't want to be gorging yourself on things. So think about, just think about the positives rather than what you're going to gain and your goal, and always like think into it. So another thing as well is you just want to identify your limiting beliefs. Okay. So an example would be, say, like transforming a limiting belief of I'm incapable of reaching my health goals because I've failed so many times before. Two, you change it to I'm capable of reaching my health goals because I've learned the skills I need to keep myself on track in the future. So it's all about switching it. And everyone, myself included, I have like negative thoughts come into my mind about things as well. And it's just all about turning it around. Practice like, the law of attraction. So think about, most people have probably heard of the law of attraction. So this is where you put an idea out there and you constantly think about it, and you'll actually manifest that experience. So, you always become the person in your mind before you've actually done it. So you have to take the actions of a fit and healthy person before you are a fit and healthy person. So when you're unhealthy and unfit, to actually be that healthy, fit person, you have to then start doing the actions of a healthy, fit person. So you become that person in your mind and through your actions before you actually reach your goal. So just think of it that way. So, engage in your new activities with a positive mindset, not like, oh, I can't do it. Oh, I can't lift that weight. I can't do this. I can't do that HIIT session. Just change it to, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to give it a go. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You're never going to get anywhere if you're just sitting in your comfort zone all the time. It is hard to lose weight. Like if you've gained like 20 kilos, it's hard. It's not easy. But if you have the right trainer and the right support, you're going to be able to do it. It's like, and you've got a community of people that are supporting you and have your back. Anything is possible. So, but there's going to be, points there. And I have like some quite overweight people that I train, and they're amazing. Like they just give it a go and they're losing weight, and they've got it in their mind. Like they want to reach that goal. So anything is possible, and it doesn't matter what size you are or what age you are, for that matter. And just talk to yourself kindly, okay? So, and also accept that you will make mistakes. Like people make mistakes. I actually have it on the back of my t-shirt, progress over perfection, okay? So you don't have to be perfect all the time. And it's not about like stuffing up and then going, oh God, I totally fucked up. It's like, you just have to go, all right, stuffed up today, probably ate too much chocolate or whatever it was that you did. All right, tomorrow is a new day, and tomorrow I'm gonna have a better day. So we all make mistakes, okay? Nobody is perfect, no matter what they tell you. So, and just sustain healthy habits, okay? So, look at how you can change your lifestyle and be honest with yourself. People are not honest about what they're doing either. That's the other thing. You have to be honest with what you've been eating, how much you've been exercising, what you've actually been doing, and just keep on moving forward with an open mind. So as discussed, like, there's many variable factors which could be interfering with your weight loss. And it really is important to be conscious of all the different factors. And I really recommend trying lifestyle changes before you go to the doctors. Like I was talking about, like insulin resistance and autoimmune diseases. Just because you haven't lost weight doesn't mean that that's the case at this moment in time. You have to like give a training program a good 3 months before you actually can work out whether, oh, maybe there is another issue here. So I always recommend that my clients try like with eating whole foods, exercising regularly, everything that I've just been discussing today. And then if they're not seeing any changes in the 3 months, like have not made any changes, then I recommend like going to a doctor because it could be another health condition. So generally speaking, if you're being really honest about what you're doing and you're not seeing changes, then it would be a health issue. So thank you very much for giving up your valuable time and attending my webinar. Now I've got one more exciting thing to announce. I don't know if she's on the live. Okay, so I'm actually going to be running a 12-week online group training program, which I'm going to be launching in a few weeks' time. And this is my Get Lean with Lisa program. And the great thing about the group coaching is you get to have a community by your side. I give you all different, like I give you fitness plans, meal plans, recipe books, there's prizes, there's different challenges. We do like virtual training, and so much more. And one lucky, I've done a prize draw a bit earlier today, well, tonight, just before 7:30. And the winner is Angie McKindon. So Angie has won her free 12 weeks of my Get Lean with Lisa group training program. So that's really exciting. And for everyone else that has entered that program, I'm actually going to offer them a one-on-one free consultation. And everyone that's been in this, on the Zoom chat, you're all going to receive a 20% discount off my group training program, plus a free consultation. Okay, guys? So I'm going to be like Peachy, my beautiful PA, will be contacting everyone either tomorrow or next week, and I'll start chatting to everybody. So thank you again. Had lots of fun. I hope you guys have got some value out of this, and I will hopefully see everyone soon. Bye.